He wrote the books that defined our childhoods, but the man behind the magic held a darkness you never knew. This is the story of Roald Dahl, the master storyteller who blended wonder with wickedness, and whose own life was as dramatic and surprising as any of his fantastic tales. We all know Willy Wonka, the BFG, and Matilda. They are icons of imagination, characters who taught us that a little mischief is a good thing, and that even the smallest person can be a hero. But what if I told you the cheerful, grandfatherly image of Roald Dahl was just a mask? What if the real man was a spy, a war hero, a grieving father, and a controversial figure whose sharp tongue and darker thoughts were the true source of his genius? To understand the fantastical worlds he built, we must first journey into the shadows of his own. Born in Wales to Norwegian parents, Roald Dahl's early life was marked by tragedy. At just 3 years old, his older sister died from appendicitis. A few weeks later, his father, devastated by grief, died of pneumonia. Left with a single mother and a family to support, young Roald was sent to a series of brutal English boarding schools. The cruelty he experienced there, from sadistic headmasters to vicious older boys, would be seared into his memory. The terrifying Miss Trunchbull from Matilda. She wasn't entirely fiction. The grotesque teachers and monstrous adults that fill his books were born from the very real fears of a lonely, powerless boy. These experiences planted a seed in Dahl's mind. Adults could be tyrants, and children had to be clever, cunning, and sometimes even a little bit naughty to survive. This wasn't just a theme in his stories. It was the creed he learned in the school of hard knocks. As Europe edged towards war, Dahl, craving adventure, turned his back on university. He joined the Shell Petroleum Company, which sent him to the exotic landscapes of East Africa. He learned to speak Swahili, encountered black mambas, and lived a life straight out of an adventure novel. But the real adventure was just beginning. When World War II broke out, Dahl didn't hesitate. He joined the Royal Air Force, training to become a fighter pilot. The glamour of being a pilot, however, was quickly shattered by the terrifying reality of war. In 1940, flying a Gloucester Gladiator over the Libyan desert, he was given incorrect coordinates. Running out of fuel as darkness fell, he was forced to attempt a crash landing. He smashed into the desert floor, his skull fractured, his nose smashed in, and his eyes temporarily blinded. He was pulled from the burning wreckage, a near-death experience that would haunt him forever, but also ignite his career. While recovering from his injuries in a hospital in Alexandria, Dahl experienced the bizarre and the surreal. He had visions and hallucinations, his mind wrestling with the trauma. It was during this recovery that he truly began to write, not children's stories, but accounts of his thrilling and terrifying experiences as a pilot. After a partial recovery, he even rejoined his squadron in Greece, flying sorties against overwhelming odds. He saw friends die, engaged in dogfights, and lived life on a knife's edge. But his war injuries were severe and persistent. Blinding headaches eventually grounded him for good. His career as a fighter pilot was over. But a new, far more clandestine chapter was about to begin. Sent to Washington, D.C. as an air attaché, Dahl's official job was diplomatic. His real job, he was a spy. Recruited by the British Security Coordination, a branch of MI6. Dahl's mission was to use his charm and wit to gather intelligence and persuade a reluctant America to support Britain in the war. He moved in the highest circles of power, befriending senators, journalists, and even First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt. He was a handsome, dashing war hero with a gift for storytelling, and the American elite was captivated. He fed information back to London, nudged political opinions, and engaged in what he later called the dirty business of propaganda. He was encouraged to write about his exploits to build sympathy for the British cause. His first paid piece of writing, published in the Saturday Evening Post, was a sensationalized account of his desert crash, titled "Shot Down over Libya." The Storyteller was born, forged in the crucible of war and espionage. It was here, in the midst of secrets and lies, that Dahl mastered the art of manipulation through narrative, a skill that would later make his children's books so utterly compelling. After the war, Dahl's life seemed to settle down. He married the glamorous Hollywood actress Patricia Neal, and they started a family. But tragedy was never far away. Their infant son, Theo, suffered severe brain damage when his baby carriage was struck by a taxi. Refusing to accept the grim prognosis, Dahl threw himself into finding a cure. He collaborated with a neurosurgeon and an engineer to invent a new medical device, the Wade-Daltil valve cerebral shunt that helped drain fluid from the brain. The device was a breakthrough, used to treat thousands of children around the world. Dahl, the man who would later write about the magical powers of children, had used his own ingenuity to save them in the real world. Yet, just as the family was recovering, another blow fell. His young daughter, Olivia, died from measles encephalitis at the age of 7. This loss devastated Dahl. It was a grief so profound that he could unspeak of it for the rest of his life. The pain was unbearable, and it changed him forever. It's no coincidence that his writing took a darker, more profound turn. The year after Olivia's death, he published Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Think about it, a story about children facing peril, where bad kids get their just desserts and a good, deserving child inherits a kingdom of magic. It was a world where rules, however bizarre, were absolute, unlike the senseless chaos that had taken his daughter. Many believe his most famous works were his way of processing this unimaginable grief, creating worlds where he could control life and death, where good could ultimately triumph over the senseless cruelty of fate. The BFG, a giant who steals children from their beds, isn't a monster, but a protector who saves Sophie from being eaten by other, far more evil giants. It's the story of a father figure saving a child, a fantasy Dahl couldn't achieve in his own life. But here is where the story takes its final, most complicated turn. The man who wrote with such empathy for the underdog, the child against the tyrant, was himself a deeply flawed and often cruel man. He was known for his explosive temper, his arrogance, and his cutting remarks. His relationship with his wife, Patricia Neal, disintegrated after she suffered a series of massive strokes. While he nursed her back to health with a brutal, relentless regimen that many credited with her recovery, he also began an affair with her best friend, whom he would later marry. His own children have described him as a bully, a difficult and domineering father who could be both magical and monstrous. Furthermore, in his later years, he made a series of unapologetic anti-Semitic comments that have permanently stained his legacy. So, how do we reconcile this? The war hero and the bully, the grieving father and the unfaithful husband, the creator of magical worlds and the purveyor of hateful words. This is the great paradox of Roald Dahl. Perhaps the darkness in his life wasn't something he overcame to write his stories, but the very ink he used to write them. His books resonate because they aren't just sweet fantasies. They are laced with a vein of cruelty, a recognition of the grotesque, a sense that the world is a dangerous place where terrible things can happen. He didn't shield children from the darkness. He gave them the tools to face it. He taught them that monsters are real, but that they can be outwitted. He showed them that adults can be foolish and cruel, but that a clever child is more powerful than any of them. Roald Dahl didn't just write stories. He bottled his own trauma, his rage, his grief, and his genius, and transformed it into a magical, terrifying, and ultimately empowering legacy that changed childhood forever. The man was a contradiction, but the magic is undeniable. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the complex life of a master storyteller. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories behind the stories. Let me know in the comments which Roald Dahl book is your favorite. See you in the next one.